My name is Bennett Vallbona. I grew up in Winchester, Kentucky, and I am married to an amazing man named Ronnie Vallbona.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful daughter who's 17 years old named Jaden.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you grew up in Winchester,
Yes,
15 minutes away from here.
yes.
Have you lived there your whole life, or?
I lived there until went to college. I went to college at Transylvania.
Yep.
I got a full scholarship to go there, and then I moved around a lot after that. But coming back to Winchester repeatedly.
Yeah. So you went to college at Transy?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me a little about your childhood growing up. Did you go to church? Did you not go to church? What was
growing
that
up, I went to a Pentecostal church with my mom's side of the family and a Methodist church with my dad's side of the family. So I was just confused. One was very charismatic and one was very, methodical. And I knew that I lined up somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But my childhood, when I was 8 years old, I started having some pretty bad childhood trauma happen to me.
Yeah.
And because of that, I felt unlovable, even by God. And I started doing things to make me feel better, like getting good grades or being the president of this and that club. And getting my scholarship was like my shining moment. But then things changed when I got to college.
Yeah.
My senior year, I had to quit taking care of my mom, and I came back home, or I had to quit school and come back home and take care of my mother. And doing that, I started falling in with people who were not the best sort to be falling in with.
Yeah.
And that's when my life of addiction started.
Yeah. So that was in college?
Yes.
So what was that like? What did the start of that look like? Yeah.
Oh, it started out innocent enough because I was truly so naive about drugs and I just didn't know what I was doing. And I fell into hard stuff really, really quickly, really fast, and really heavy.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that, those years of addiction, I had some sobriety in there. I managed to have 8.5 years one time.
Yeah.
I did 2.5 years one time, but I was sober, but I wasn't in recovery.
Yeah.
Because to me, being in recovery means you're working a program and you have what the program calls a higher power, but to me is Jesus. I didn't have that element, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
You have to have Jesus.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Even
Yeah.
as someone who hasn't struggled with addiction, you have
Yes.
to have Jesus, right? So, what was how long? So you said 8.5 years sober at one point, 2 years or something at one point. So how long was your overall from like start to?
About 25 years of addiction. Like I said, though, it was with breaks in there. So
Yeah.
I guess really more like 15 years of addiction. And I started off with heavy drugs and I quit that, and then I switched to alcohol thinking that it wouldn't be as bad, but let me tell you, it is.
Yeah.
I took my last drink of alcohol October the 15th, 2015.
Yeah.
I was told that day that I had cirrhosis and that if I continued to drink, I would die. And I quit. I just quit.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, my daughter was 6, and I didn't want her to not have a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably a very scary day.
Yeah,
Sobering
it was.
day in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Figurative and literal.
But, the doctors don't understand it, and they can't explain it, but all of my liver enzyme tests are normal now.
Yeah.
And they just shake their heads, and I don't.
Yeah.
Because I know, I've prayed for healing. Other people have prayed for healing for me. And I know that God is mighty and able to save me in any shape, form, or fashion. And my liver enzyme tests are the same as any other person in the world right now.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, that was, you said you've been sober for 18 months. That was in 2015 was your
Alcohol sobriety date.
Yeah.
December the 5th, 2022 is my sobriety date from drugs.
Yeah.
I just celebrated 18 months of sobriety, which is a year and a half, and I think that's huge.
Yeah.
And when I came in this last time, I went to Grace Place, which I had been there before. And the woman there asked me what would be different this time. What would I do different? And I said, I'm not going to do anything different, but He is. I'm going to give it all to God. And that's what I've done. I have surrendered every single thing to Him.
Yeah.
And every day I wake up and I pray, God, please today let me stay sober. Let me do your will. And let me do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And at night I thank Him that I stayed sober that day. And that, I pray if there's anybody I've wronged, that they would forgive me. I mean, there's a lot of things we do in recovery that are step work related. But I make sure that when I go to bed at night, my side of the street is clean. If I wrong someone, I say it. If, my motives are unclear, I fix them. I try to do everything with the heart of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what's different this time around.
Yeah. That's incredible, B. That's incredible. So you obviously go to Macedonia. How long have you been going to Macedonia?
Well, we started going to Macedonia when we moved back down here from Louisville. I started going December of 2022.
Yeah.
And I worked in the nursery for a year. I was the normal Sundays nursery worker. The kiddos are my peeps. I love them. And I've also worked on the school side.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, how is your involvement at at Macedonia? You've done stuff with the nursery and that kind of thing. How is your involvement with Macedonia, with Ron, with the folks struggling with addiction? What does that look like?
Well, on Sundays we get the van or sometimes the bus, thanks to Micah, and we go and we pick up people who otherwise wouldn't get to come to church.
Yeah.
People from the Hope Center, people from Sober Livings, and we bring them to the Macedonia church because we know what it's done for us.
Yeah.
We know that the people there love you back to life.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to love me to death anymore. I can do that myself.
Yeah.
But these people at Macedonia, they are so receptive to the people we bring in with the van ministry. They truly reach out with the heart of Christ and love on them. And then afterwards we do what's called the love lunch.
Yeah.
And we all sit down and we fellowship.
Yep.
Because to me that is so important because I want to show these women what a good, healthy, normal marriage looks like.
Yeah.
And what to look for in a man. Because so many of the women in recovery don't know their value or worth, and they settle for something. They confuse their deadline for God's destiny. And I try to show them that God has something special for them. Just be patient.
Yeah.
And then, we share our experience, strength, and hope through the meal, and what's helped keep us sober. And every time they ask me, my answer is always Jesus. That's what keeps me sober is Jesus.
Yeah.
And work in a program, yes, but I put Jesus first in my life today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you help out with the transportation with Ron.
Yes.
And then Love Lunch. What are some, and then nursery and
yes,
that kind
I still do. As soon as I get healed, I'm going to start doing nursery 1 weekend a month.
That's awesome.
I've committed to that for Tula.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. And so outside of Macedonia, what are you kind of involved in?
Outside of Macedonia, I am going back to school full time to become a pastor.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Colorado Christian University with a biblical studies degree. And when I graduate, I would like to specialize my ministry with women in recovery. Because if somebody hadn't shared what Jesus did for them,
Yeah.
and shown me that He could wipe away the shame and the guilt and the feelings of being dirty and not enough, somebody shared that with me.
Yeah.
And now I don't have nightmares, and I know that I'm a beautiful child of God, that the number of hairs on my head, He placed them all there, and I feel so special.
Yeah.
And I didn't before.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So that's your calling.
Yes. To show those ladies that Jesus does love them. and that there's nothing that they can't do because, with God, nothing is impossible.
Yeah, that's incredible, B. And I can see that in the way you engage with people and the way and your passion for it. It's pretty incredible to see. So you started coming to Macedonia in December of 2022.
Yes.
Whenever you decided, all right, I'm going to do this for real this time. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yes.
Well, you've been baptized?
Yes.
Yes.
Pastor Mark did that. I was actually listening to you,
Yeah.
to the worship band practice one Sunday, and the music just moved me so much. The music moved me so much that I walked over to Pastor Mark and I was just sobbing, but it was tears of joy.
Yeah.
And I said, Pastor Mark, I've got to be baptized. And so he did it that day. And I already know that the Holy Spirit was in me, but at that moment in time, I really felt the Holy Spirit's presence.
Yeah.
And I felt it ever since. It's just like, it's like this driving force in me that I know it's always there. And it's that soft whisper. Sometimes it's more than that. But I know that I am the temple of God now.
Yeah.
And that makes me treat myself differently.
Yeah.
That makes me interact with people differently. I don't talk like I used to, and I don't walk like I used to. And I don't settle for the things of this world.
Yeah.
Because Jesus wants me to have so much more. And I do because of him.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's great. That's great, B. So, if you had a message to send to other people, right?
Yeah.
Like that may not know Christ. They can be in addiction, they could not be in addiction. Just a message to others. What would you want to share with them?
I would share with them that if you put all of your hurt and you put everything that you feel like you can't show the world at the foot of the cross and you give it to Jesus, even if your heart is broken, he will put it back together perfectly. And the little spaces where it may not line up exactly, that's where the light of Jesus shines through.
Yeah. That's great.
We're all stronger at our broken parts, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That is great, B. Now, last question. Last question is our since Jesus question. So everyone has a before Jesus, right?
Yes.
Not everyone has a since Jesus,
No.
but you do have a since Jesus. What would your since Jesus be, just in a couple of sentences?
Since Jesus, my life is spectacular. I have a heart full of love. Since Jesus, I've managed to be sober 18 months. And I now know that his Holy Spirit lives in me. And because of that, there's nothing I can't do with God at the wheel.
That's awesome. That's awesome, B. Well, B, I appreciate it. Sharing your story. It's powerful. It's beautiful. And God's given it to you. And I know this isn't the only time you share your story, but I would encourage you to share your story, right? Because
Yes.
it is powerful. And that's what God calls us to do, right?
That's right.
Well, B, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, absolutely.